order for Monday, August 10th. And I will note access to meeting. You can attend our meetings. You can also stream it live, and you can also watch it on the website if you're not able to be part of tonight. So we'll move into the opening and roll call.
Mr. Lepak and Ms. Bushman are excused. So Mr. Liebrick.
Here.
Ms. Potter Nelson.
Here.
Ms. Scott.
Here.
Ms. Mercer.
Here.
Mr. Kowalski.
Here.
Mr. Pope.
Here.
Ms. Erler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We allow public comments via email and in person. Did we receive any public comments via email?
No, we did not.
And did anybody sign up to speak tonight?
No, we did not.
Is anybody present this evening that did not sign up but would like to address the board? Seeing none, we will move into our presentations. If we could have our communication report by Sarah O'Donnell.
Hello, thanks for letting me chat a little bit about our communications from June and July. Our Believe Belong Become theme will continue into this next school year, so we're really excited about that. Keep some continuity there. Over the summer, we just had a really great time covering as much summer school as possible. There are so many just phenomenal classes offered for students, from the possums, where they have the dogs, it's possum. It sounded like possums when I said it, opossum, but not correct. Partners, they just did some really cool things bridging generational gaps, headed over to the Ruth Gilfrey Center. We've had some new game design and cybersecurity concepts with Kate Castor, who is just phenomenal, and also got to do just some video storytelling, which was really nice. Brooke Brubaker, our communication specialist, did the bulk of this work. She has really just done a phenomenal job picking up our storytelling over the last year. Brooke has moved to maternity leave. We are on listening for baby watch. So keep thinking of Brooke as she goes through that. Social media for the last 2 months, our total audience was up 13.7% year over year, and 18.7% for Facebook and Instagram respectively. I do just want to note again that it has a lot to do with that consistent storytelling. When we see the consistent lift there, those are big lift numbers. So we're really grateful and excited to see that when we look back. Impressions continue to look really good, engagements continue to look really good, specifically during a time when we have that lull in available content. There's just not as much going on. So great job to everybody that covered. Oh, where is I messed it up?
That's right. I will save Dave.
Thank you. Excellent. Looking at our website and digital campaigns, these are pieces of the website that we really want to do something. So we pay a little bit more attention to them than maybe say a page that just serves more as an information repository. So we're really keeping an eye on these closely and making sure that they're performing at a particular level. So the ones that we're really focused on right now would be our Point Proud Schools 2040 Task Force. Total views for that are up significantly. One, I think interest is continuing to build as that task force gets more into the meat of that work. So we'll continue, I think, to see engagement there. The key event count there is really what I think is important. It shows us that when folks are on there, they're not just hanging out on that first page, they're clicking through into the articles that we have, so they really are consuming that content and hanging out there for a little bit of time. Program and budget evaluation is another one that we've been keeping an eye on. We want to make sure folks are paying attention to that process. We can see views there over the 2 months. We're over 1,600, which is a good chunk, especially during summer. Just attention spans are different as well. The Ski Shack Classroom launched like a week ago, so we have 13 views there. We've not pushed that anywhere yet. I expect to see that increase as well, and I'm excited to show you what we have there in a couple slides. Back to school, obviously, always a big one this time of year. Over 3,000 views there. We've also got really nice high counts on newsletters and nice high counts on social as well. So we believe we're doing a good job of getting folks to where they need to be to get the information. And then enrollment, we've seen really big jumps over the summer just compared to what we typically see during the school year. So you can see we're getting nice traffic across our general enrollment pages, open enrollment, 4K enrollment, and even PODS enrollment had some good traffic over the summer. Back to school communication is the bulk of our work during late July into August. So like I mentioned, we do have that website hub set up. Everything is there for families. So we really work very hard to have that one-stop shop somewhere that they can get everything that they need and then push folks there as much as possible. This summer we did maybe 2 weeks ago, last week, we did our welcome back postcards a little bit earlier than we have in the past because we noticed an uptick in questions coming into our office and wanted to make sure we're being responsive to families that were trying to get a head start on back to school. We also did a community-wide school start soon. We have not done this previously, but felt it was really important to kind of, one, invite the community into our school year, and two, kind of capture anybody who may have moved into our school district over the summer, make sure they, have the information of where they can enroll, learn more about the schools, all that great stuff. We also did our Education Connection Back to School newsletter. That I think is sitting at 15,000 views, so that's performing very well. Again, that functions as a one-stop shop for families. And then we'll kick off our back to school video here in the next week or so. We'll launch that a little earlier. Excited to share that with everyone. I did just want to mention the Boston School Forest Ski Shack page. This is one of the bigger campaigns we've been asked to participate in the last few years. So just trying to help Carla share that good message. And anytime Carla asks us for anything, the answer is yes, because she is infectious and her energy is amazing. So just wanted to highlight, if you were to go to the Boston School Forest page right now, you would get a pop-up that would lead you directly to this page. So we also have it linked through navigation, but we wanted to make it really easy for people to find, really easy for people to donate. Mike and his crew did a nice job of setting up kind of a donate now option so people can give online, make it really easy for them. And then Brooke was able to go out and capture these 3 testimonials, which are absolutely worth listening to if you get the chance, of folks that are at the Boston School Forest, can speak about the Boston School Forest. Alex was really the one pushing the ski shack in the beginning, so just really cool to have their voices incorporated into that. So excited to see how that performs as well. Looking ahead to August campaigns, obviously we're focused on that staff welcome and return communication, both that district level communication and then just supporting events that happen throughout the district. As those folks come back, same for families, continuing to be focused on those accessibility, resource pushes for staff. That compliance date is again April 20th, 27. And then working on our Third Friday Count Me In campaign. We did this last year, excited to do that again with students and staff, really moving not just from that Third Friday count, but focusing on attendance overall and setting up some good habits at the beginning of the school year. Our routine cadence is just information we're just kind of sharing on a monthly basis. And then our work to get our chat mobile app launched, which I believe you'll chat about a little bit tonight in policy, and then our training days for clerical liaison. Any questions for me?
Go ahead.
No, more of a comment, but I like the inclusion of some of the stuff that you want to highlight. That's really helpful for me as a board member because I can help, I think, a little bit in terms of what I choose to amplify. I may choose to amplify other things too, but if I know what your priority is in terms of where you'd like to see the most engagement, that helps a lot.
Thank you.
And just thank you on getting the back to school stuff out. I think our brains all kind of start transitioning in that early August date. So I think as a parent and a community member, I appreciated having that there. I was like, yes, okay, now I can start processing it. So just thank you for getting that out in a timely fashion.
Thanks for that feedback. So I always feel like I'm ending people's summer when I sad to me and things, so.
I mean, kinda.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah.
So Sarah, I just want to note that, like, as you say, summer is a lull, but it's busy. It's summer school and, our Maintenance staff is probably working harder than they ever have to because they've got the major projects that they're taking care of in all our schools, but also your job too. There's a lot that's happening behind the scenes during the summer.
The district does not stop, right?
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, we'll move into the superintendent's report. Corey?
Yeah, thank you, Meg. I'd like to say thank you to the following for their generous support of our schools and the district with their donations. We had Peace United Church of Christ donate $484.14 to the Money for Meals program. The Sarah Moore Family Foundation gave $5,000 towards risers at Washington Elementary School. The Noon Optimist gave $1,000 for positive attendance. So again, thank you to those families and organizations. We have a couple students that recently received their Eagle Scout honors. We have Ryan Blasky and Leonidas Whaler. Ryan completed 29 merit badges and 79.75 hours rebuilding the soccer shed indoors for the Spash Athletics Department. And Leonidas earned 39 merit badges and put in 129 hours building picnic tables and redoing the seating for the Spash trap shooting team. So thank you to those students and congratulations on their Eagle Scout Award. Also, we just learned today that our Spash girls golf team won the Silver Medal Award for winning the Academic All-State. So congratulations to those girls that participated in regional, sectionals, and state. And not only are they good athletes, but they're also good students as well. Few things happening here. School is just right around the corner. We've got our new staff onboarding that starts this week. It takes place on Thursday and Friday of this week and Monday and Tuesday of next week. Board members are invited to attend the Spash Library on Thursday of this week at 8:30. So if you want, please show up and there'll be a light breakfast there and you can have an opportunity to meet all of our new staff. We have a clerical in-service on August 17th at the Ben Franklin Library. We have our Educational Assistant Institute Day on August 24th at Spash. And then our all-staff beginning of the year in-service days are August 25, 26, 27, and 28. And then the first day of school for our 4K students in our elementary buildings, our kindergarten students, 7th graders and 10th graders is August 31st. And then everyone comes back on September 1st. Staffing update, Beth is happy to report and I'm happy to report that all of our teaching positions are filled for the upcoming school year. We are still continuing to recruit for special ed EAs, regular ed EAs, a bilingual translator, a cook, a delivery driver, a parent partner, and a maintenance worker. So we still do have some positions open, but all of our teaching positions are filled. Spash Athletic Hall of Fame induction for the class of 2026 is October 3rd at Century World Atrium. From 4:30 to 6 o'clock is the social, and then the induction begins right at 6 o'clock. WASB honor roll nominations. We had 5 local business partners that we nominated for the WASB award. We nominated Land's End, Woodlands Church, Playhouse Theater Group, Anovia, and Heartland. Fall regional meeting for WASB is September 29th in Wausau, Rush Holt area again. So if you're interested in attending, please let Nicole know. WASB resolution submissions. If you are interested in submitting a resolution to be looked at the convention in January, please submit those by September 4th and make sure that Nicole has them in a resolution format so that the board can then act on those in September. We have to have them back to WASB by the 15th. And the last thing on my list is a few board members attended this summer learning symposium. So if anyone that attended that event would like to share, now's your chance to do that.
G, did you want to share anything on that?
It was a while ago. I'm trying to think back.
It was a long time
Yeah, I
ago.
took
I had
some
to,
notes.
I had to pull my sheet out.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything WASB does for us. Truth be told, I thought the topics were not like hot button topics. It was just kind of general. But it was a great chance to see people from other districts. You had people from way up north, way out west, and some people from down south to see what's going on in their school districts, and had great time talking to them. And you know, just gauging where we are, and I think we're in a pretty good spot compared to a lot of districts.
Comparatively. We were talking to some of the smaller districts where, in Wisconsin, with our 421 districts, most of them are smaller. And those people are really suffering from the population decline. And it's as G says, we have been proactive and things are looking better for us than many.
Thank you. So luckily I took some notes while you were there because after a few weeks, you're like, what did we talk about? So one of the things, school perceptions came out and they had discussions about how do we reach the people who are not involved in our school district? Because there's a whole community out there, they're voters, they're interested in our schools, but they don't necessarily look on our website or go to Facebook, but they still are interested in what's going on in our schools. And so one of the things they talked about possibly doing, and I think our district, Corey, you and Sarah, you guys, they do a tremendous job with communication. But if you're not getting that information because you're not connected, it's hard. So one of the suggestions they made, because a lot of people want to print, so they talked about possibly doing a quarterly newsletter with things that are happening, things that people would want to know or would be interested. That's for, and as we're doing the task force, you know you're going to be talking to a lot of people who aren't as involved as we are and aren't connected as well with the district. I mean, they talked about how important, and school perceptions, you know, we've used them, but they said a lot of people want that print. They want to read about what's going on. I thought that was a great idea as a possibility.
Chris, just so you're aware, Sarah is thinking about doing that.
Oh, that's great.
It's expensive
Oh, yeah.
to do a mailing in a district this size. However, Sarah agrees 100% that there is that group of people that we just aren't connecting with.
Right.
So we're looking at doing it either quarterly or maybe either 2 or 3 times a year, just something.
Yeah, it just really made sense to me because there are already people who are involved but don't know, but those people who don't know, but they're still interested. It's their schools, they're paying taxes, they're gonna vote.
Yep.
We want them to, you don't have to give them all the information. The other thing they talked about is with this new election, there are a number of legislators who are not going to run again, which means we're gonna have a change. And the way they look at it is, yes, it's a change. And it could be a change for a lot of opportunities to educate people and new legislators as to what's going on, which I thought really makes a lot of sense. The one other thing they had, and I had told Meg about this, and she asked if there was a statute on it, and there isn't. And I found out that what happened, there was a court case, and I can't remember, I'd written it down, I know it's a district that begins with M, but I don't know who. Anyway, when using written ballots, there was a complaint and it went to court. And WASB is saying, if you're gonna use a written ballot when you're voting for someone, I don't know, you know, either, I don't know if they said committees or board members, that you should have the person who's presenting the numbers on the votes telling which board member voted for which applicant. But, you know, I don't know that we use it that much. I think in our, in our reorganization, but they said, we recommend anytime you do that to make sure, and that's why it went to court, because they couldn't tell who was voting for who, which candidate, so they said, we just believe that if you're gonna use a written ballot, when you're voting for someone, they should know which board member is voting and supporting which candidate. It's not a statute, but it went through a court decision, and they say we like that, so. That's it.
All right.
That might be worth a follow-up.
Yeah.
With WASB, just to kind of find out what they're referencing and allow you guys to take a look at it.
Absolutely.
And I just want to add, there was a student panel about student voices involved in school board and then also student councils. And I did not write down her name and I did not bring my agenda, but we actually had a student from SPASH who sat on that panel. And she was involved in, and I'm going to mess up the organization, but the State Student Councils organization. She's currently the president and just spoke very eloquently about student involvement in school boards and student councils throughout the state. So I will get everyone her name once I get my notes back at home, but she did a wonderful job, so.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, we are now going to have the MD Rappers update. When, of course, we started this process, MD Rappers told us at appropriate times they'd be coming back to us to kind of give us a, here's what's happened, and then here's what's going to be happening, so they're here with us tonight.
So welcome, Mark and Nick.
Thank you. Again, good evening. I've got a presentation to share here, so I'm going to try to pop that up on your screen. And hopefully it's there now. Or if you're, are you, I think you might be seeing my different screen. Nick, what are you seeing?
Yeah, we are. We're seeing the picture is open because you're screen sharing.
Okay. I'm going to try something else here.
That should do it.
You do share.
Click share, yeah.
All right, and now I'm gonna, one step at a time here.
So for just a heads up for future, Mark, it would be
Yes.
really helpful for us to be able to have that presentation in front of us, so if we wanted to take notes on it, so I'm hoping in the future, if we can get that to admin, it can even come the day of the meeting, and they can, make copies for all of us, but that would be really helpful moving forward.
Absolutely. We did get the presentation in advance, so we'll make sure that we make a copy of it
Okay,
in the future.
that would be really helpful.
Yep.
And obviously, we can share the presentation after the meeting with y'all. So I'm gonna go through a few slides, just kind of update you. I realize now that it's been since March that we've appeared before the full board. A few of you have seen more frequently than others. Nick is also here attending. If he pops in and out, it's also because he's got a small child that he's kind of wrangling this evening as well. So we appreciate everything. And there's the proof. All right, so just in summary, you provided the task force with guidance to recommend a long-range school facility plan for the district, including advice on phasing by 26-27. So they're charged and scheduled to do that by December. You've asked them to evaluate a range of different long-range options with respect to utilizing the district's school buildings. And you gave them a detailed set of evaluation criteria to use to compare those options, which include maintaining or enhancing student opportunities, managing student and family impacts, being fiscally responsible, and using buildings efficiently. And as you probably remember, there's a lot more detail behind this summary. We are more than halfway through the meetings of the task force, which is a little exciting and a little scary at the same time. We've used our first 3 meetings to gain common understanding on a range of issues that you see here listed on the left, under the left arrow. We are now actually concluding a step providing general direction to us from the task force. That'll spill over a little bit into September, but as I'll share a little bit later here tonight, the task force has explored a couple of broad school facility related options, including the potential for reconfiguring grade groupings and reducing the number of school buildings within the district. We intend to move in September to a stage in the process, the final stage of presenting and evaluating a series of facility paths, alternative directions for charting school facility changes over the next 10 to 15 years. And again, the charge is to recommend to you something in December. So the next several slides I'll go through quickly, and they summarize the information presented and discussed at the first 3 meetings in, I think, 5 slides. So a lot of condensing here, but at our first meeting, the task force learned about enrollment projections to building capacity. One thing right in the middle I would like to highlight is that the projected enrollments about 10 years from now is about 800 students fewer than the combined working capacity of all 9 elementary schools. That's at the 4K through 6 level. And your average building capacity is around 440 kids if you look at your 9 school buildings and you take the average. Some of your buildings are over, some of the buildings are under capacity. That's another issue the task force will grapple with, has not yet dealt with directly. The task force learned about educational programming policy and trends, and discussed targeted class sizes, the relationship between targeted class sizes and the actual average class sizes within your district, which typically fall at the lower end of those ranges. Chris in particular spoke about student needs, which the task force observes seem to be increasing, which can result in increased demands, especially when class sizes get larger. We also talked about test scores and about the pending move to full day 4K at 5 elementary schools and half day at 1 other. Sorry, I'm a little bit stuck on this slide. There we go. The task force then learned about the district's financial conditions and forecasts, including a deep dive into state shared revenues and how that works and how it affects the school district and its funding, the fact that it's lagged behind inflation, and led to a cycle in the Stevens Point School District and many others of operating referenda every several years. And a final note to the task force that the district has sought to decrease by at least $1 million or a target of $1 million in operating expenses each year. So this is all information that the task force has garnered and put into its memory banks as it's moved forward with developing some options. The task force learned about the district school buildings and sites. It learned that the capital referendum of 2018 has resulted in improvements to just about every building, if not every. That the district's school buildings, at least portions of them, are rather old, and you see some of the average sizes. And also learned from district staff that deterioration typically accelerates after about 40 years of school buildings. That's resulted in the district having a capital needs plan for the next 10 years totaling about $2.5 million a year in needs, while the district has been able to spend or budget for only a fraction of those each year. The task force learned more about the district's buildings and sites, including that each elementary school building, if you divide up that 10-year plan, has an average of about 1.16 million in needs over the next 10 years. And on average, costs about $1,000 per student to run each year. You have utilities, plowing, other things to keep going, but not including salaries. Seems like I'm presenting only the negative, but on the positive side, in addition to those improvements that were made as a result of the 2018 referendum, you're in a fairly good spot in that all your elementary buildings have separate cafeteria and gym spaces. That's not common across all districts, and that is certainly an asset to discuss. The many spaces in your buildings don't have the most suitable characteristics for modern learning, and we've listed some of those right now that can be a challenge, particularly as capacity or enrollment approaches capacity in the buildings. The district learned a little bit about its busing services, or the task force did. The district provides in-house busing, as you all know. The perception is that it's a cost-efficient service compared to an alternative private service, if that were even possible here in central Wisconsin. The in-house busing is provided to all of your students based on their distance from the school. If they're within that certain distance, they do not get a ride on the bus, except if they're across a busy street or have to deal with another unusually hazardous transportation situation. And if the task force learned that if schools consolidated, if we have fewer, busing needs may increase as current walking zone kids fall into another school's busing zone. So those were the background, the kind of key talking points. We turned then in July to focus on a couple of options in sequence. We learned that it would be very difficult to explore things like attendance area changes and whether or not 4K should grow even further in the district without first understanding and coming to some consensus as to whether the task force even wanted to explore grade reconfiguration and consolidating or reducing the number of school buildings. So that's what we've really dialed into over the past couple of months. The group discussed potential grade group shifts, particularly at the July meeting. And at the end of the July meeting, we asked members individually to provide a ranking of their perceptions of the different grade configuration options. There were 4 that made the cut out of a total of 7 that were considered. One was the current grade groupings. The second was one we called option A. And in option A, 6th graders would move to one of the 2 current junior high schools, which would be repurposed for grades 6 and 7. And the other would be repurposed for grades 8 and 9, with high school remaining the same in the 10 to 12. The second option, option B, would keep the 6th graders at the elementary school level, but shift 9th graders up to the high school level, thereby leaving the 2 junior highs or middle schools in the grade 6, 7, 8 configuration. And then the third option is an option in which 6th graders would move up to the intermediate schools, and then the 9th graders would move up to SPASH. And what this table says, as you've probably been dialed into while I've droned on, is the number of folks at the end of the meeting, task force members that ranked each of those choices as their first choice, second choice, third choice, or fourth choice. So to provide an example, and I guess the leading example, 32 of the task force members chose option C, the K5, 6, 8, 9, 12 model as their first choice. And then the bottom row includes the rank of the different grade group options. As mentioned, they selected option C, that option over other options, including retaining the current grade group, and viewed the benefits of shifting to that model, including creating standardized grade alignments and improving the student experience. But there were not and still are not concerns associated with going to that. And those concerns focus particularly on the suitability of SPASH as is to accommodate 9th grade students, both in terms of its capacity and its ability to handle students without significantly compromising programming. So the concern is with what would be the cost of bringing SPASH up to date, if any, and would that reach a point where a referendum would be required, and how would the community react to that? The concern of some of the members associated with that is, well, if we are also potentially looking at closing schools, stay tuned for a discussion on that, while also improving the high school, that would require a careful plan, phased implementation, and really good communication to allow it to move forward. So while there's significant support among task force members to change to that grade group configuration, there's also concerns that we are working with the administration to get more information to help resolve. We just last week discussed with the task force the potential for school building consolidation. And at the beginning of that conversation, the task force learned that if we retain sixth graders in the elementary school buildings and expand 4K like it's going to be in the next couple of weeks, the district would have a projected 1.5 to 1.8 building equivalent in excess elementary capacity. That's based on the average elementary school building size of about 440 kids. Now, if sixth graders did in fact get shifted away from the elementary school buildings into the current junior highs, which they would in a couple of those reconfiguration options, the excess capacity in all the elementary school buildings combined would increase to about 2.6 to 2.8 building equivalents, because you're taking sixth graders out of those schools and not replacing them with other kids. Now, if in either of those cases, you have the potential to expand 4K into elementary buildings. That would reduce the excess capacity. That would also necessitate attendance area changes, because as you know, some buildings have the capacity right now to accommodate 4K and other buildings do not. The task force did discuss the potential for consolidating from 2 junior highs to 1. And found that would be a very challenging prospect and only possible in the least popular of the 4 configuration options that were explored in detail. At the end of that meeting, the task force, I'm sorry, I should talk a little bit more about the task force discussion first. We had an extensive discussion with the group in small groups mostly. The small groups explored the benefits of potentially consolidating or reducing the number of elementary schools, including operating savings, better use of facilities, reduced staff travel, and the possibility of reallocating resources saved to student services or other building improvements in other schools that would remain open. Some of the concerns voiced by task force members for consolidation, including disrupting family and students, impacting transportation, particularly busing, larger class sizes, loss of identity in the neighborhoods that would have a closed school, effects on staffing, and uncertainty about how exactly a specific building would be selected for closure. We have not gotten to that point in our process. We are instead focusing on if or whether a school building should be closed. And if there's enough support for talking about it further, we'll start talking about what school buildings might be candidates for that. The task force had a significant discussion and interest around repurposing one of the current elementary school buildings as an early learning center, and also about redrawing attendance area boundaries with or without consolidation. I think some of them are just anxious to get into how can we redraw boundaries in a way that might balance enrollment among the schools we have a little bit better than they currently are balanced. Like at the end of the July meeting, we polled individual members at the end of the meeting, asking them in a sort of a evaluation form, in your preliminary opinion, which of the following should the task force focus further discussion on? Of the members who participated, which were most of them, 7 suggested closing more than 1 school building should be further discussed. 22 said closing 1 school building, and 5 suggested not closing any school building should be discussed further. So, like with the idea of grade reconfiguration, the notion of closing or consolidating at least 1 likely elementary school building has some traction and is going to warrant further discussion. And now the trick is to wed that idea with the idea of potentially reconfiguring grade groups and how that could work together and potentially over time through a phasing plan. We are planning our September meeting already. At that meeting, we plan to share different alternative paths. These are going to be different directions that will have different approaches for grade group changes, consolidation, building improvements, other particular issues, based on the input that we provided, received from the task force to date. Some of that input is very uniform and unanimous among task force members. Some of it is unsurprisingly not always that consensus based at this point. Each path will have phases, which is something that we have not addressed yet formally with the task force, with different steps in each phase to lead to a long-term target or goal that path would result in. and you see the different general timeframes for the phases. We have had some questions from the task force to the board that the board may wish to weigh in on this evening about the criteria and related items. I'm going to flash those up on screen right now. If you have any thoughts about these questions, the first one being is wondering, is the task force expected to recommend an option that does in fact save the district money? And secondly, and relatedly, there's always a dollar sign here, what is the board's opinion on options that may require a capital referendum to improve one or more buildings to serve a new or expanded purpose? And the focus there is on SPASH and the potential for SPASH to accommodate ninth graders. So with that, if you have any thoughts on these questions or questions of me and Nick, who is still here, we're happy to take them on right now. Thank you.
G?
Way back in the presentation, I don't know if I misunderstood it, but said that, one of the slides said that we currently are fixing problems in the schools, the buildings at a rate of about $700,000 a year, but that we need $2.5 million a year. Are we deferring needed repairs that should be done now? Are we deferring them?
Well, yes, the answer to that question is yes, because we don't have enough in our Fund 46 to fund everything that needs to be done. But we're adjusting that and you're approving that as needed. For example, the SPASH roof that desperately needed to be done, we moved that up so that we could finish that, finish portion of the roof this summer. So some things we do defer.
Like some people, I thought after our $75 million referendum that we said we're taking care of that. And it wasn't that long ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And now we're on schedule that we're not deferring things.
And we're not deferring like we once did. I mean, we're keeping up with things as best we can, but there's always work to be done, just like a home. I mean, there's always.
It feels like prioritizing might be better than deferring. I
Right.
get the point, G, but
Well, the figures were startling to me. If we're only spending $700,000 a year, and according to their study, I think it was, we should be spending $2.5 million, which there's a huge difference there.
I'd have to agree with G. I didn't, the 10-year plan is a 10-year plan and we're pretty happy with it. But if we're only doing 1/3 of what we should be doing every year, that's a surprise.
I'm gonna ask Mike to come up. The good news is we were able to put more into Fund 46 this year. So Mike, do you wanna address that?
Yeah, so the 700,000, that's in our regular budget that we budget for every year. We also have Fund 46. That's a fund that we put money away into for capital projects. That fund was getting depleted, that was down to 2 million. But by using money from Fund 46, we've been spending more than 700,000 each year. 700,000 is a regular budget, Fund 46 adds to that. So for example, the roof we did at SPASH, we pulled all of that out of Fund 46 to do that this summer. Fund 46 was getting depleted, it was down to just a little over $2 million. But we had some good news this year, our budget performed better than expected. That's gonna allow us to move, we had planned to move 500,000 into 46. We're gonna be able to move more than that into 46. And I put it, the amount, I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I did put that in the board update for you guys.
Well, and G, I want to speak to your point about the referendum that, passed in 2018. Because I was on the board clearly at the time. And we had a facility study done prior to pulling together what projects we were going to take on. What I can tell you is that the facilities plan called out like A projects, which were these need to get done, like changing the heating system up at Svash, dealing with PJs, doing a lot of the guts of our building in terms of HVAC. Then there were the list B, which was, these are projects that need to be done, and we should, do them to the extent we can. And then the C were kind of more, these would be nice, these would be helpful, but they're not essential. And ultimately, we balanced what the community was telling us they were willing to consider in terms of the dollar amount with those lists. So the bottom line is, at the time, basically the 75.9 million, which was the referendum that we asked the public to approve, was basically the A list. I mean, it was a list that allowed us as a district to address some additions. It allowed us to address, again, a lot of that kind of behind the scenes,
Safety and security.
HVAC, safety and security,
Gym cafeteria space.
the gym cafeteria at Splash, lighting, energy efficiency stuff, quite a bit of upgraded technology, wiring, again. But we knew that the dollar amount that we were going to need to ask the community for, if we were going to try to do both A and B, it was an insurmountable number. And so, again, I just want to make clear to the community that when we did that, and put that list out, it was really balancing what our buildings really needed, because they had gone for many years without a lot of that attention, but also with what we believed the community could afford to pay and would be supportive of in that referendum.
And just to jump in, I was at the meeting that Chris shared this information about, and it was kind of like, hey, this is the money that we're spending annually. In a perfect world, we could easily put more money into this. And so I think, yes, that we could always put more money in. As a former teacher, we could always put more money into our schools. And so I think as Chris was presenting that information to the task force, he was kind of saying, look, some of our buildings do need a little bit more work. We've been able to, with the 10-year plan, make these things happen. It's been some very careful planning and some flexibility from the board and some flexibility from us. In a perfect world, we could easily spend more money on our buildings, was how Chris, at least how I interpreted what Chris presented to the committee.
Absolutely.
Where did he come up with the 2.5 million figure? Is this, who came up with it?
Go ahead,
They
Mike.
came up with a number, I don't know.
So the 2.5 is the 10-year capital plan. So over the course of 10 years, every year we have planned projects. And then what happens is, if there's some that we can put off or that we just can't afford to get to, it gets pushed back. But I think what Mark did is he took that whole 10-year plan and kind of divided it up to see what it would cost to actually do all those projects every year within the next 10 years. Is that kind of correct, Mark, how you piece that together?
Yes, that's right, and I think the secondary point of presenting this information was to share with the task force what the potential savings might be if a school building were closed, because obviously if a building is closed and sold or disposed of in some way, you no longer have to spend on its capital needs. So as we got to specifically the information that was presented just last week, we were able to quantify, based on the capital improvement plan, the projected savings in capital needs for an elementary school building if it were no longer in service.
And some of that information also, if you go to the 2040 Task Force website, all of the presentations that have been shared with the task force are on that website. And Chris, I think it was the May meeting, April or May, Chris went down and kind of broke it down building by building, and so that might be helpful information to pull. Good
point.
For anybody in the community as well.
I think with the plan that's seemingly being endorsed by most people would mean that we've got some remodeling to do at Spash if we take the plan, we're moving the ninth graders to Spash. And it kind of hinted at another referendum. That was my take from what they said, that we're gonna have to get the cash there to do that. And my worry is that, okay, we did our last referendum, 75 million, and most people I know say, thank God, you know, and we're done for a while, for this generation or something. And now we've got a hint at another referendum, although far less. But now we're saying, we got a guy coming in and doing an analysis saying, you're not spending enough to keep up your maintenance. Is that there it is, the district's 10-year capital needs plan, 2.5 million a year. But the district can spend 700,000, and I look, and I know what, you know, I'm not a finance guy, and people are saying where money is coming from and where it's going to and stuff like that. But I see those two numbers and saying, we're way below what we should be spending. If he came up with 2.5 million, and it's his business to show us these numbers, besides a fortuitous year where we came up with some extra cash to put away, we're heading for the same thing we did in 2018 was the referendum? Saying we don't have enough money, we better, are we heading there again, or is there a way to avoid that, or is it just the natural progression of things?
I think the reason that we are doing what we are doing right now with respect to this demographic study is, as board members being aware, and now I believe task force members being aware, that as our enrollment declines, and it is projected to decline based on the state funding formula, our district will be receiving less revenue. I mean, that is a reality. And we can ignore that and continue to do business as we've been doing it. And, you know, as Mike projects for us, you know, related to this last referendum, you know, we can start seeing major deficits in our district within the next 2 to 4 years. Or we, as a board and as a district, can make some decisions now that will allow us to more efficiently, economically manage this district moving forward over, you know, as Mark just said, the short-term decisions that may need to be made prior to and implemented prior to 2030, and then other decisions, other actions that need to take place between 2030 and 2035, again, assuming that we do continue to see the enrollment decline we're seeing, and then after 2035. You know, as Tom Owens always said, the further out you get, the less accurate the information is. But ultimately, every district in the state and our district is going to have to come to grips with the reality that our state funding formula will, as our enrollment decline, provide our district with less financial resources for us to be able to operate our schools without going to referendum. Because right now, our only option for adding additional resources to our district outside of the funding formula is if our district goes to referendum, and I think all of us have been trying to ensure that we currently manage our resources as best that we can so that we can frankly postpone when we would potentially have to go to referendum again.
And I think the committee, I think a couple of things, as the person, as one of two people who have been observing, I think the committee, like, some of the nuances missing in the slides where I think the committee recognizes, like, some of these options are, like, there is no good option, but if we are to make a fiscal decision, they're trying, like, no decision has been made, and even some of the grade groupings, we're gonna revisit again and have longer conversations about. So I think the biggest thing to kind of stress is the committee, in fact, when the conversation shifted to potentially closing a school, I think 7 out of the 8 groups said, if you look at the numbers, this makes sense. We don't love it from a taking care of families and students perspective. So so I think that a lot of the committee members are really torn on some of these decisions and are not having a hard time wrestling with it, but just they feel the weight of that decision. I think the other thing that we all, like, having lived in Maine has already crossed this enrollment decline. Like, they have the average oldest age of the states of the United States. And I think we keep hoping, like, it's come up a couple times in the task force, like, what if we get 100 more students or 200 or 300? And I think we have to really wrestle with this idea that this isn't a Stevens Point problem.
Right.
This is a Wisconsin, a nationwide, like, this isn't a unique to Stevens Point problem. Not that that makes the decision easier. I want to be hopeful and say, yes, what if we did get 400 new students? But I think I think that is also something that we just as a group have to wrestle with. And so yes, the conversation could go to referendum, has been floated out, but a lot of task force members also don't want to go that route. And so they're weighing, I don't want to say it, but they're weighing a lot of different things. And not to step on your toes, but just to add some of that human nature to those conversations as well.
No, that's great. And if you don't mind, just to build on that, you see that I put the criteria back on the screen. And it'll be impossible for any option or path to get an A on all 4 of these criteria on screen. There are definitely going to be compromises. The other thing I wanted to just comment on briefly while I have the floor is that we didn't know whether the task force would even be interested in moving 9th graders to SPASH. Now that we know that there's some interest, the administration and your consultants are working to sharpen our pencils to understand a little bit better when that could happen, how that could happen, what if any compromises to programming would need to happen, and what, broadly speaking, improvements to that building might be advisable. So we hope to have that information unrolled over the next couple of meetings, that now that we know there's sufficient interest to continue to explore that.
And I would also, I'm not saying apples and oranges, but when you look back at that referendum and you look at what they're thinking might be a possible need for a referendum, it's night and day. What they did with that money, they weren't looking at closing a school, they weren't looking at repurposing, they were looking at our buildings need help and we need to change a lot. This is a proactive way, coming from a different direction, and I think one of the things that brought up referendum was 9 to 12. Putting that in high school. That could happen, but we don't know.
We don't know that.
I mean, nobody wants to go to referendum, but I just think it's a night and day difference of what we did, why we did it, and the discussions that happened then versus the discussions now, that we're trying to be proactive, saying, we can see what's happening. What can we do, to use our buildings in a way that is best for students, also financially, so that we don't get back into that place.
Correct.
To do that. I have one question. When we talked about possibly repurposing an elementary to an early learning center, what grades would that be?
Specifically, the task force was talking about like pre-K and 4K.
But it could be 3K all the way through kindergarten too, but it would depend on what building.
Right.
If a building was repurposed for that reason.
And the reason I asked at the symposium, they talked about if you had space, you could do like daycare, you could do an area, Kennedy might do something like that.
They do.
They do.
Yeah,
With
and so if there was space to do something like that, that would be, something to include too, but,
Then we meet a community need,
right,
And I think the other programming that would be housed in an hypothetical early childhood center would be just all of our early childhood special education programming.
Right.
Because right now, those providers travel all over the district to multiple community sites and now school sites to provide those services. So it is a very inefficient model
right.
when we think
That
about
would be wonderful for parents
time.
and hopefully staff, if we could do that, so.
I was
Go ahead,
just,
Go ahead. I've talked a lot. Go ahead, Marty.
I was kind of surprised by the final two questions, I will say, like, I would think the answers to those would be kind of obvious, like, yes, the point is to save money, and maintain as much programming and quality as possible, but we're reducing enrollment, we're reducing the funds that are coming in, so we have to reduce the funds that are going out. So that one seems straightforward, and then I think we've talked a little bit, and G, to your point earlier, they weren't just hinting at a referendum, they flat out asked if we wanted to go down that route. I think the answer in the community right now is emphatically no. There is no chance we are gonna get a referendum
I agree.
right in this moment with everything else that is going on and the economic pressures of the world, so.
Well, I
Then,
just-
sorry, go ahead, G.
in the discussion, I haven't seen anybody really bring up anything solid about us not going down the same slope where we're gonna end up 5 years from now saying we're deferring stuff that needs to be done now because we don't have the money. We are being proactive in the fact that we are cutting the budget by $1 million each year, which should help. But I also wanna say that the possibility, very distinct possibility of closing 1 or 2 schools exists, apparently, according to what's being discussed. We already have a building that we can't get rid of. Now we're talking about taking on another one and another one after that. We're not in the real estate business. Get rid of that building. We need to get really serious about getting rid of that building. And if we discontinue use of an elementary school or two, we're still trying to keep it in good shape. It's still gonna cost us money. We're not gonna, we still need to keep a good roof on it and stuff like that, and they're notoriously hard to get rid of. So I would say one of the considerations that the task force should have in deciding, if they come to that, taking one school out of the picture, is do we have somebody who wants that building? Can we get rid of that building? We don't wanna be in the real estate business. We don't wanna own a whole bunch of real estate around the district that's empty. And we may be in that if we're not careful.
that did come up during our meeting.
It did come up. Yep.
Sitting there.
Yeah.
So it is under consideration, because that did come
What's
up.
that?
Just, is it feasible to sell an elementary school and what can you get for it? And we have a member on the task force who works in real estate, so we did spend probably 15 minutes just kind of talking through that.
Well, we have a building to get rid of now.
Yes.
Let's get rid of it.
I'm just saying I'm just letting you know that the task force, because we have
I
such.
said last year we'd be talking about again next year.
Right, but just because we have representation from so many different voices, that actually did come up, is it even feasible and would we generate revenue
And how much?
and how much?
Yeah.
And that is not, the task force understands that one.
Any one-time revenue that you'd get from the sale of a building, consider a bonus, not the main reason why you would be closing a school.
Right.
Then why are we holding out on the price of the building we have?
Well, and Mike plans to bring that back to the board and have another discussion about that. He and I both agree.
I think I may die before. Thank you, Ted, for saying that.
So, I think maybe, Mike, it would be helpful to address G's point if we had an actual dollar amount on how much we spend on capital projects per year as opposed to, we think we spend 700,000 plus a portion of Fund 46.
Well, we do have, every year, don't we get a layout of projected projects?
Yeah, the
Yes.
10-year plan.
So we should be pretty good at that. And as Tom said previously, it gets more vague the more you go out, but for the next 4 or 5 years, we know exactly what we have to do. Can we do it? You know, without,
And then what have we done for the last few years in terms of actual spend?
Sure. We can pull that.
I was, so he talked a lot about the ages of our buildings, and by the way, I was very surprised to find out that Bannock is 34 years old, because the way people talk about it, I swear I thought it was like 10 years old, not lived in this community. But, is there enough difference in the capital needs of individual schools that would be a factor in which one we close?
The task force has talked about that. Yes, we would need to gather more data to make that decision and have that, impact the decision, but absolutely.
And then I think one of the things I didn't see highlighted here, but that we have talked about a little bit, and maybe you want to speak just a little bit to, Corey, is Mark did mention, I highlighted it here, really good communication. So I and others have seen an uptick in the general scuttle about this project increase as it goes on and as we get closer to making actual decisions, and as newspapers have published articles about it, it's getting a lot more engagement from the community than it has in the past. So what are we thinking in terms of what we do for the community as we are making these decisions to ensure that we are keeping everyone
Updated, absolutely. So we are going to sit down with staff members in the fall, once, we start to get closer to that final recommendation to the board. And then we intend to do some, meetings at local civic organizations, Portage County Business Council, United Way, Boys and Girls Club. And then potentially, we haven't really finalized this yet, but maybe even a opportunity for public just to come in like we did during the last referendum, just to learn more about it.
So some community listening sessions potentially.
And I obviously kind of seeded that question because I knew the answer, but I did think it was important for the public and for the rest of the board to know that we have thought along those lines as well.
Absolutely.
Well, and I also think it's really important for us to understand, for the task force to understand, for the community to understand. We are talking about creating a long-range strategic plan for our schools and for our buildings. And so the board is not going to be looking at making a decision coming from the task force where things are going to happen overnight in this district. Each of these potential directions that we are talking about moving in are going to take significant, substantial research on their own. The decisions that we're making are very serious decisions and have the potential to impact this community in very broad ways. And I don't believe any member of this board is taking any of this lightly. It's just that we are, as a district, this declining student enrollment isn't something that is being, quote, projected. We are already and have been seeing it for the last number of years, and hate to bring up COVID, but it somewhat accelerated some trends, again, not only for Stevens Point, but for school districts across our state and across our country. But we all know that we are graduating larger classes from SPASH than we are bringing in our 4K and our kindergarten grades. So we're seeing that decline. And with that, we will be seeing, there's some kind of break in that 3-year, there's a 3-year averaging as we're losing enrollment in terms of the loss of those, the funding that we've been seeing. But it's happening.
Correct.
And it is essential that we are, again, being open with the community about, this reality.
Yep.
And how we can best manage it, I mean, we, 4 years ago, I wanna say now, we made a boundary shift for our junior highs. We were seeing a larger population at Ben Franklin that we were seeing at PJ's. And the board at the time made a decision to change those boundaries to have our Kennedy students go to PJ's when they had historically gone to Ben Franklin. At the time, the board recognized that was a big ask of families and that was going to have an impact on families. We created a system where we allowed families over a 3-year period to be able to make the best decisions for themselves and for their students as to when the transition would be made. And currently, that transition has been made for all families. We are seeing equal enrollment at those 2 junior highs. The decisions we're talking about, if we are proactive as we're trying to be, I believe are going to allow us that same ability as well to provide structured transitions that the community is aware of and understands are going to be happening so that as impacts arise, people are able to best deal with them. I mean, that would be my hope as to why we are undertaking this long-range look.
You're absolutely right, Meg. The good news is we're not in crisis.
Right.
So we don't have to make any decision quickly. And whatever, decision is made is gonna be thoughtful. It's gonna be, it's gonna be a tough decision, and we need to keep students at the forefront and family impact at the forefront. So we would be irresponsible to not do anything, knowing that our enrollment is going to significantly drop. And the good news out of the whole thing, like I said, is we're not in crisis. So we can make this decision
I would
thoughtfully.
encourage the administration, I know what you did in the referendum, how the outreach. I think at the things we're looking at for the district and for our schools and that, I think it's really important that they understand, we don't wanna close a school to save money. We don't wanna move, we don't, what's the task? Why are we doing what we're doing? It's really important for people to understand that 500 and then looking at kindergarten, those numbers, how we're funded. I think that's really important for people because they're gonna pick out the things that they're concerned about. But if they understand the reasoning of why this all happened, how proactive, what we're watching with fewer students and what's happening all over the state and the money and the referendums, those kind of things, it's not, I mean, we may get an influx, that would be great, but right now, it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. So we're being very proactive, but that number is really important for them to understand how it started,
Yes.
so.
Thank you, Mark and Nick.
You're
Oops,
muted,
Mark. Yep.
You're on mute.
Goodbye.
See you later.
We understood that.
We're done.
So again, as Liz mentioned, there is just a wealth of information on our website related to the task force meetings that have occurred and all of the information that has been provided that will continue to happen. We will also continue as a board to get, these updates so that we're learning what's happening with the task force and the broader community is learning what's happening with the task force.
Absolutely.
Hopefully Corey can bring to us maybe at the next meeting, kind of a structure of the communication plan that administration is looking to implement over the course of the next several months.
Yeah, I will do that.
Are there any other questions or comments that anybody wants to make?
At the beginning of the meeting, I was gonna share with you, Meg, I talked to a couple of community members that are on Project 2040, and they've done a really excellent job sharing the communication about the funding and how we do funding. And the person I talked to had a pretty good understanding of it, which, as you and all of you know, is a difficult topic.
Did he have a cup?
I was rather impressed. They did a really good job, and it's a difficult topic, so doing a good job.
Thank you for the feedback, Ted.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, our next item is our consent agenda. It is the approval of the schedule of monthly bills, the minutes of our special school board meeting, July 13th, 2026, and employment recommendations. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Would you call the roll due to the bills?
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Liebrick,
Yes.
Ms. Potter Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Mercer,
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Erler.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We will move into the Business Services Human Resources Committee report. Jen was not able to be here this evening and is excused, but she's asked Marnie to provide the report.
I'm gonna give the light version in interest of time tonight. So there will be several things that come in front of us, including the new citizen committee member will be asked to vote on that. The recommendation after the new process, which I also heard went swimmingly. And I like the sort of blindness of the original selection of the two people who were interviewed. They selected Andrew Getz. Andrew is a community member and also has children in the school, and from my understanding was one of the primary reasons for choosing Andrew was his connection to the trades and the perspective that he could bring to the board from that particular angle. And he was unanimously recommended, so we'll get to that in a minute. We got an update on Gerke Park. I guess maybe long and short of it is things continue to go well. They're updating the press box. That might take some extra time. The one thing that did come up is the city wanted to pave over the running track that was a part of Gerke Park, and the school district said, no, we need a track, please. And so the long and short of it is they will maintain the liner and under portions of the track, but the school district will be responsible for resurfacing it. That was information only, but to carry that information only forward to you all, that means that sometime in the next 3 years, we will have to spend approximately $125,000 on resurfacing the track, but the alternative was not having a track, which is not a great alternative. There will be some budget updates. Mike did kind of give a little spoiler already, and we won't see that formally yet, but as they continue to look through the numbers, it does look like we are coming in underspent for the year, and we'll have extra money to divert to both the general fund and Fund 46 to tap into some of that capital improvement money. So overall, pretty good news for the year in terms of the work that the administration has done on the budget. So I was really glad to hear that. There will be one budget revision that Mike will talk about in a moment. And then the other two things that we discussed were the calendar of events for the Business Services Committee, and Beth brought forward the new co-curricular kind of pay schedule and allocation, depending on what is there. And that was all.
Great.
So yeah, we have a couple things that I think we have to come up with. New
Yep.
committee member first.
So, as Marnie said, we did use the newly adopted system for committee selection. The board did ask that we get a report back as to how it went, and I guess I'm gonna ask administration, maybe if you could.
Yeah, I feel like it went very well, as did both Chris and Jen. We did redact the names when we first looked at the applications that came in and then narrowed it down to 2 individuals to interview. We interviewed, that went well, and as Marnie had indicated, we have recommended that Andy Getz join our Business Services and HR Committee. He is a general manager at Ahern here in town, has 3 children in the district. He's got a wealth of experience to include financial oversight of budgets, governance, workforce development, construction expertise, and strategic leadership. So we think that he will add a wealth of knowledge to that committee, and we highly recommend that the board approve that.
So are there any questions on that at all from board members? All right, then I would be looking for a motion to approve Andrew Getz as the new citizen member on the Business Services HR Committee as presented.
So,
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor with aye?
I
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. And we have Mike up for,
Actually, Jackie.
oh, it's Jackie, okay, for the revision of the 25-26 budget.
Good evening. So I'm bringing forward the 25-26 revised budget to the board for approval as we do every year in August. Just to let you know, the document did change since our committee meeting. The reason for that is because after the committee meeting, we realized that the amounts that were in the adopted budget did not match the amounts that were approved by the board. So we made those adjustments for you. The reason for those changes was simply due to a budget adjustment that was done, should have been done in the revised budget, accidentally happened in the original budget. So, changes that happened. So if you're looking at the sheet, you'll notice in Fund 10, under revenues, the local sources of 200s were increased due to student fees. In the intermediate sources, in the 500s, those changes were increased for mid-state grant. Under state sources, which is the 600s, those were increased due to Common School Grant, the Reading Readiness Grant, and School-Based Mental Health Grant. And under federal sources, which is the 700s, those were increased due to Carl Perkins, Title II, 21st Century Grant, and then the flow-through CCEIS grant. So, and then on the next section then would be the expenditures. Those expenditures match the revenue for those grants, those dollar amounts, so it's for all those grants listed above. The only other change was in special projects funds, which is Fund 21 and 27. Those were due to Century Grant and then flow through. Fund 38 and Fund 39 had no changes. Any questions on that report?
Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome.
I like it when revisions are more money.
Right. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the revised 25-26 budget as presented.
So moved.
Okay, motion and a second.
Second, I don't know who, yeah.
So we
Was first.
had motioned and Liz seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. We will now move into the human resources portion, which is the academic co-curricular compensation plan, and Beth's gonna present that.
Good evening. So similar to what we did last year at this time with our coaching stipends, we went to our neighboring districts to compare what our stipends were versus where they were at, just to make sure that we're competitive. It is very difficult to compare these stipends because different districts pay for different clubs and activities. For example, we have 70 academic stipends versus a Marshfield that has 40 or a East Amherst that has 110. So it varies through our group. But in general, I believe that our base stipend amounts are competitive. So we're not looking to increase those base amounts, but we do want to simplify how we put the positions in categories. So we have several, well, not as many as we currently have, but we have probably 4 categories with different levels. We have the coordinator level, advisor level, and director level. And then within that advisor group, there's 4 or 5 different levels. So as a result of that, moving some of these positions from one level to another will mean some pay changes. And we're proposing that if it's an increase, those individuals starting this school year in those positions would receive that pay increase. Those who would be receiving a decrease will wait until the position becomes vacant. The savings over time will be close to $6,000 as those individuals move in and out of those positions.
Do board members have any questions for Beth? So I'm just noting that you indicated that 14 positions will be receiving a decrease in pay once the position is vacant and we are hiring someone new into that position.
Yes.
And we currently have 5 out of the 14
That are vacant.
are currently vacant. So there will be 9 positions that will be grandfathered in under what they are currently
Current pay is,
receiving.
correct.
Okay. All right. I am looking for a motion to recommend to approve the new academic co-curricular compensation plan beginning with the 2026-2027 year.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you for all the work behind the scenes. You know,
It was a project.
it's
The motion was really fast.
It's right here for us, but we really appreciate all the time it took to do all the research, both into what our current stipend positions were, as well as all the neighboring districts. It just really helps us be able to focus in on.
It's a long time coming.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Beth.
All right, we will move into the Educational Services Committee report, and I'll turn that over to G.
We had 3 things that we discussed. I think all 3 are gonna be discussed here, right? The third one, the grant for the students.
Correct.
So I won't say much about them, except that the academic standards one's pretty perfunctory. We have to okay it or else come up with our own, and good luck with that. And then, if you wanna do that, you'll be on your own. The Act 89 policy compliance updates, I thought that was kind of interesting. It might affect some people, you know, and we have actual people who will be working with students and we're going to make sure they know, you know, what you can do and what you can't do. And then the last one was a grant for students to get extra help with IEPs, IEP students to get extra help. And I think we're gonna talk about that, so I won't say anything.
Thank you, G.
Great, thanks, G.
All right. So the first item up is the academic standards for 26-27, and you're gonna take that, Chris?
Sure, I can take that one. Thanks, Meg. We did have some discussion around academic standards. I just wanted to provide an update to the full board for anyone who may have been part of that conversation or been present. I did share internal communication with the committee. We did have some concern about some of the academic standards that had not been updated on the proposed 7-year cadence that's created by the DPI. Upon further review, prior to Corey and I drafting a letter to the DPI expressing that concern, we did realize that they've updated a review timeline that did include addressing those standards that have fallen out of that 7-year cadence. So they have incorporated those into what will now put them back on track following the reorganization that Corey referenced during our committee meeting last Monday evening. The one set of standards that is still a bit unknown and I'm still continuing to work on getting an update for is science. The last time science standards were reviewed was in 2017. They were slated for review in 2024, and we still have not received an update on that set of standards, so we're still operating on the 2017 standards. So we'll continue to follow up on those, and I'll bring up an update to the board or to the Educational Services Committee as soon as I have more information on that particular set.
Excuse me a second, but I think it's worthwhile saying, when our students take the forward exams, the ACT exams and whatever, they're based on these standards. So when they don't get updated, our students are, being put behind the 8 ball, and also our teachers. So it's really important that the DPI stands up and does this. It looks like they are going to do it, because they have not done it, but they are going to do it.
Correct, and they do have those standards laid out for review. As I said, science is the only one that we're still kind of waiting on, but.
The science standard, the science standards are an ambitious set of standards, and so within the science education community, I think there's still a lot of conversation around even working towards initial implementation of the next generation science standards. So just from that level, I don't know. So.
Right, and I think there was a lot of discussion, and what was a potential delay was just even how they begin the process in terms of organizing the existing standards to begin the review.
Yep.
Any other questions for Chris or comments for board members? All right, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the academic standards for the 2026-2027 school year as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion and a
Second.
second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. I'm going to move into the Act 89 policy compliance updates.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. I can take that one as well. The Educational Services Committee had an opportunity to review a total of 7 policies that we're asking for the board to approve. This will maintain our compliance in terms of implementing all statutory requirements in alignment with Wisconsin Act 89. There is also tangential connection with some of these policy revisions to Wisconsin Act 88 and Wisconsin Act 57. Wisconsin Act 57 requires 24-hour reporting for any potential misconduct by a staff member toward a student. So some of these policies address that. Act 88 in the state of Wisconsin defines and criminalizes grooming and categorizes it as a felony. Act 89 is the requirement for all districts to develop a slate of approved communication platforms so that all communication between students and staff members can be monitored. We are doing our first large-scale training. To G's point earlier, there will be some significant changes in terms of practice for our staff, and sometimes policy updates come to the board and we approve them, and the staff doesn't necessarily have to change a whole lot of what they do because their practice is already in alignment with what we expect in policy. This is a bit different because the 7 policies will require them to change some of how they do what they do. So we'll train tomorrow for our first group, our elementary and secondary principals. We're meeting with our full leadership team on Wednesday morning. They'll receive the same training. Those leadership folks will then take the training back to their buildings and they'll train all teachers and all support staff back in their buildings. We also have a laid out plan to address those folks in transportation, nutrition services, and buildings and grounds. A lot of the practice that will be interrupted or changed really has over time been done with all of the best interest in mind and with all of the best intentions. In other words, I'm making myself really available to students. I'm making myself really available to parents. Wisconsin Act 89 really says that sometimes those situations turn into situations that are inappropriate, and misconduct can enter those conversations really quickly. So this really does tighten up the way we communicate and where we communicate so that it can be monitored.
Go ahead.
Do board members count as staff for the purposes of these policies?
I would highly encourage board members to follow the same
policy and recommendations.
When
Yes,
you put the training out, then I think it would be very useful for us to have it too.
absolutely.
Do the problems with Skyward right now have, work into this? Cause if you're trying to organize a field trip or something with students, you're communicating through the school system. You have time, dates and deadlines. Right now, I understand we're having some problems with Skyward.
We've had some interruptions in service with Skyward. At this point in time, it's fully operational, so we're not experiencing any kind of outage. I think the other thing to know is the approved platforms are not just Skyward. So we would have other avenues that would be considered approved, that we could still plan those field trips if indeed there was a timeline that needed to be expedited.
So Chris, can you just, from a practical standpoint for families who are maybe listening in tonight, could you just give some examples about like maybe how something might have been operating over the last couple of years and now with these changes and the required policy, what that's going to look like as we move into this next year?
Sure. I can give a really practical example. I think we have a lot of really incredibly dedicated staff in our district who have, in the name of really investing in building positive relationships with both staff and families, have, as an example, provided their personal cell phone number to a student or to a family member. And they've used that to communicate outside of school hours. About maybe an event that's coming up the following day, or maybe an event that's coming up the following week. And what will change now is rather than making their personal cell phone the way that they communicate with those families and students, we'll say, we're not saying you can't do that anymore. We want you to invest in building relationships with students and families. We want you to be accessible. We want you to continue to partner with students and families in that way. It just needs to be on a platform that we can monitor. And that we have approved as a district. So we're not taking something away and saying we're not replacing it with something else. We are providing avenues for that communication to continue. It just won't be on an individual staff member's personal cell phone or communication device. I hope that's helpful.
So I guess I'm just, again, me being practical. So is it, so will the communication tend to be more via email or via phones at work during the day? And I guess what then is that impact for communication? You know, I know our staff bend over backwards at times for, you know, at night, on the weekends, et cetera. So I guess can you just give a sense of what that's gonna look like?
Sure, and staff members will still have the ability to be able to communicate with students or with families. Outside of the regular school day, they can do that on their school email account. Or they could also, we do have a new platform that we're adding called Final Sight, which will allow families and students to still continue to text. But it just will be a monitored platform, so it won't necessarily be going through an account that we don't have access to. So in the event we do get a report that there has been misconduct or potential misconduct between, say, a staff member and a student, we don't have to go and get personal cell phone records. We have the ability to log in, and it allows us to expedite that investigation much more quickly. Yeah, so we're not saying that that kind of communication won't happen or that it won't happen at all. It just will land on the approved platforms.
And I know you talked a little bit about this in the meeting too, but just to highlight, what, if any, implication does it have for, I have 4 students in this district, I'll just use myself as an example. I have many junior high students in my house often. And how do we help our staff members navigate those boundaries when it is outside of school hours, not for school purposes, but definitely still kind of falling within the realm of things to be cautious about?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Marnie, and we'll talk about this in our training that we provide for both our leaders and for staff, to say that reality is it's very pervasive in our district. We have lots of staff members who have children, who have other people's children over to their house. And really our guidance is to just exercise good professional judgment in terms of not being alone in a setting in your home. If you happen to have your children's friends over, always be sure that there's another student there. And always be sure that, you know, the conversation is grounded in like something that is appropriate and could not ever, under any circumstance, be categorized as misconduct.
Junior high students are not always appropriate. I'm trying really hard to not think that. And I mean, I think I would exercise good professional judgment, so I don't, but like, it is a difficult situation for parents to navigate.
There's a
Agreed.
thousand what ifs.
Absolutely. There are 1,000 what ifs.
I know times waiting for parents to pick up kids after wrestling meets, getting home from another town, and there's one kid left with you. Right? You have to have some guidance there, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You better not sit there with the kid, you better have them in another room or someplace, and you're someplace else, and if you have to call the parents, you don't have the luxury of doing an email or something like that, you gotta call them. And,
A year of
yeah.
transition
There
and
are times
monitoring.
too, I mean,
Right.
I get a hold of Colton's friends if Colton's not around. Like, hey, where's Colton?
Yep.
So
But I think all of those exchanges, and sometimes I think when this kind of large scale change happens around how we communicate, it's really easy to fall into this belief that, oh, no, now I can't do it at all. And that really isn't the case, right? If there's not anything inappropriate in the conversations or the exchanges that you're having, as long as it's being done on a platform that can be monitored, there really isn't anything to be worried about. So all of what you're describing, I'm sure, is entirely appropriate. Communication and connection with other students and families, and none of that is ever going to be questioned. But again, we're going to have to live this for a while before people establish a level of comfort that doesn't make it feel like now I've been completely correct. Correct.
So we have in front of us a number of policies, and a number of revisions, and just a reminder for board members that for the last number of years, well, first of all, this is state law. We as a district are required to adopt these revisions. Administration has worked with Neola, which is our policy expert. They provide proposed policy drafts to many of the districts in our state. They work with them. As is the case, their policy recommendations often have, you can choose A or B, or choose A or B or C, what best fits your district. Each of those options is in compliance with what the state law tells us, but administration did spend some time really going through and ensuring that the options that were selected best reflected how our district has been operating and how we would like to see these policies as we move forward. So just want to remind the board of that. So Neola did a lot of the work in creating this based on state statute, but administration also did a lot of work in ensuring that it best fits our school district. So I am looking for a motion to approve the revisions to policies 1213, 3213, 7,530.02, 7,540.03, 7,544, 8,210, and 8462 as presented.
So moved.
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. We'll move into student services, and the first is annual resolution regarding expulsions, IHOs.
Hi, everybody, welcome back. I have one short one and then one a little bit longer item for the board this evening. So the first item under my agenda section is our annual resolution regarding expulsions. So in the rare event that we do have a student that's recommended for expulsion, each year we talk about how we would want to handle that as a district. And then as the board, you all decide. So if you remember, we talked about this about a year ago. Typically, what our board has felt is the best legal and fair process is to use an independent hearing officer or an IHO. That person is an attorney. They're brought in to understand what's happened, what the events have been that led to disciplinary actions, and to provide a recommendation to the board. The board then is able to review that information and decide on decisions going forward. So I would recommend that we continue that practice. I think it's been, again, a safe legal practice, a fair practice. As much as Stevens Point is a big town, it's also a small town. And so it supports our students and our board and our families in all ways. So we'd look for action on that item tonight.
Do board members have any questions of Jenny on this request? Seeing none, I look for a motion to approve the use of an independent hearing officer to determine student expulsion cases as presented.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. And then we're on, Jenny provided, this is an information-only item. She's going to be providing information on enhancing social and emotional skills in students with IEPs. Part of the grant's requirements is that she provides us with this report, so she's doing so.
Yes, thank you for your attention. I did get to provide this to the committee, and I'm excited to share it with all of you who aren't part of the Ed Services Committee. We've completed 1 year of a specialized grant. We shorten it to the ES3 grant, but in whole it stands for Enhancing Social and Emotional Skills in Students with IEPs. And we're one of the lucky few districts that were awarded this 3-year grant. The funding comes a little heavier in the first year and then tapers off second and then in third, with the hope that you've built up a lot of your systems and professional skills and adult practices to carry that out, either with a little bit of your own funding or maybe without some of these funds over the school years. So that's what I'll talk about. Did you want me to advance?
I think you can just, the clicker's right there.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
So our initiative was started taking a look at our students with IEPs and recognizing that students with a variety of neurodiversity often need additional support in that area of social, emotional, behavioral skills, but noticing that there was at times gaps in our systems or instruction or just students who weren't thriving as well as we would like them to. And we felt that being a part of the grant would only be a good thing, that it would help us with more quality professional development, better problem-solving systems, more supports for families and students, and just that we're always looking to evolve and continuously improve how we're serving our students with IEPs. So this first year, we really focused on building that system. One of the pillars that we were required to be a part of, but has been a very exciting aspect that we've added, has been internal coaching. So we added and trained 2 internal coaches. I also went through the training myself, working with, there's a state trainer, just in educational coaching. He is a wonderful speaker and a former educator himself, and he has a whole course called Cornerstone for Coaching. And we did that through one of the CESAs over a series of in-person and virtual trainings. And we had to start with having like a case person to consult with and coach, and then build up your skills with all of your other individuals. And of course, we know that coaching is one of those, it's like consultation, but with extra aspects to it, that you're really helping that person build up their practices so that they can serve the student better. You aren't the one necessarily working directly with the student in need of services. We also increased mentorship
and being able to work as a team. So sometimes when students have pretty complex needs, it can be hard to really dig into what's working, what's not working. Maybe that can get difficult or overwhelming. So just helping make sure everyone understands that it's not disciplinary, it's not evaluative, it's a piece of improving outcomes for that student. And we were able to have mentorship also for our staff through their state coordinator and their state director. So really got to work with individuals with quite a high set of skills in working with neurodivergence. And last, we assembled a core team as well as an implementation team. Our core team was kind of like our driving force of the grant. How should we spend the funds? What kind of professional development do we need? What types of students should we focus on? And then once that was decided by the core team, smaller offset teams would work on implementing plans for those individual students that were selected in need. This year, our grant is really focused on students at the junior high school level. When we looked at student outcomes and needs and areas that were most difficult, that's a challenging time, not only in life, but especially for our students with social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And we really wanted to try and provide them as robust supports as possible at that age, where it's really critical before you're having to step into the high school levels and earn credits and hopefully not be behind. One of the tasks that our core team and then implementation teams and coaches learned about is doing a root cause analysis, which is really just a fancy word for saying digging down to like what's the main problem or problems going on that are making education or doing well at school problematic. For some individuals it might be simple, for some individuals it might be multi-layers, and so you really have to parse that apart and get to know the student and what their strengths are and then what their weaknesses are. We did that in a team, so no one person has to come up with that information and again, feel overwhelmed, and coaches lead that system. Based on the root cause analysis, there were then evidence-based practices that are backed by research in the field of special education that were selected specific for that student. And sometimes what you see when there's a complex or overwhelming case is that people will implement maybe 10 or more things, but each maybe kind of weekly versus or in a weak way. But a more effective practice would be to pick one, maybe two practices and make sure you're implementing them with really high fidelity so that you know that what you've implemented is actually working for that student and not just by chance or luck or just maturation or something like that. That you really know that the practice you picked is having a positive outcome for students. Our educators went through a variety of professional development opportunities, especially focused on Affirm, which is an agency that puts out modules and resources on what are evidence-based practices for children, especially in the autism spectrum, but are also very effective for many students with different neurodivergence, such as emotional behavioral disabilities or other health impairments, autism, ADHD. And our staff were able to provide their extra time for compensation because that learning was in addition to their already full schedule of professional development. We also worked on including a lot more tools using our grant funds. So learning more about how we can use AI to enhance and carry out fidelity. So sometimes the plans that we come up with require a lot of behind the scenes work that aren't easy to do, and there isn't extra time for that. So for example, if a student really needs a task analyzed form for every assignment, leveraging that and working smarter to make sure that the student can also learn some independence as they grow and could put tasks into AI to give them a task list have been some cool areas that we didn't even know our team was going to take some of these ideas and just be really creative about. So I'm very proud of them. We've also started using a resource called Inclusion Bites. It's put out by two experts in the field of special education that help us narrow in on various environmental and adult practices that can help students be more included because they're demonstrating more positive expected behaviors. And we'll be using more of that this next year. Through our core team and implementation, we focused on 4 students last year. That might not sound like a lot. However, if you have 4 students who have very significant needs, it's actually a huge impact for us. and for the district. So these were students for a variety of reasons who were really struggling at that junior high school level and needed a team to come together and learn about what's working well, what's not, and how to really take a different path. All of the students made significant improvement in their own individual needs and goals, and one student actually no longer even required special education services. So it was a huge celebration for all of us. That team of individuals come together, including families, educational assistants, teachers, general ed teachers, to really dig into what's going on for that student and really changing the trajectory of what's going on. That's been done using a variety of progress measures. First, we documented success, what's going well, and how can we keep momentum on that going, as well as fidelity of implementation. Just like when any of you might start a new habit, either yourself or for somebody else, it's quick to maybe drop off or make an excuse or kind of put something to the side. So fidelity of implementation is difficult, and it really requires that coaching and checking in and being consistent. As you can imagine, a large school day of junior high school, all the changes and transitions, there's a lot of people to catch up to have with fidelity. We also worked on real-time tracking, so making sure that we weren't waiting a month and then saying, last month didn't go very well. That's not helpful. We gotta be much more in front of it when we have a student with higher needs. And then making sure that everyone was on board with what we were working on and that a team was really digging in. So including the principals, all the other teachers that know the student, the educational assistants, and making sure that the knowledge doesn't just live within one person or just within paperwork. For this next year, we're excited to launch into year 2. Our core team has really felt like supporting our 7th grade students is a really important area of focus for this next year. That transition from the elementary up to junior high school is hard. And so those students really can have new barriers that maybe just weren't present when they were back at their comfortable elementary schools. So they're likely to be our students in need of most support, and so we've anticipated that, and that's where the team will come in and support. We're also excited to partner with the Ed Services Department and the grant and work through AI and UDL, or Universal Design for Learning, that will be going on this year. That will be happening on all professional development days for secondary staff. And special education and general ed will be partnering, and UDL is really just a way of how can you set things up for all learners up front, rather than having kind of a standard way and then just accommodating or modifying for a few students. So we're excited about that integration. And then we are also partnering with WISPE, which is a Wisconsin statewide parent educator initiative. It's a great time because we just finished our special education survey this summer. And so now we're excited to share back with our families what we learned, what we're going to work on, and how we're going to bring in educators to support that. Some of the things we're looking forward to doing would be some more parent education on IEPs, rights, and different programs both locally and within the state. Things that we'll continue doing, we'll be using that root cause analysis process to then select interventions, so really making sure there's good alignment. And then scaling leadership capacity. We have a whole nother team that will be going through the coaching training this year so that more individuals in the district can coach and train, and again, expand our process beyond where we started this year with just the 4 students. Happy to take any questions board members have about our grant.
I think about the grant, but are you sure you're not actually 3 people doing all of this?
Right?
I mean, I just commentary, I guess you and all of our special education teachers and staff. This is a phenomenal amount of work, and this is just one grant out of, I know how many you apply for and manage, so thank you.
There are many others who get way more credit than me, so please thank my teams when you see them. They do all the creative hard work, and I get to make sure that we're steering in the right direction, but thank you.
Very grateful that we have this grant, not only for the district, for you and the staff. These are fragile students, and if you've been in the district for a while, you can see that junior high area, how difficult it can be. And some of these are just amazing. I'm not an educator, but I have dealt with a lot of things during the district with students and IEPs before we had the officer for expulsions, and this is just amazing. Very, very grateful to you and the staff, and also for that grant. So It's great to hear. And I'm glad you'll be including parents in this, which is really important. These kids are, that's where they start, and then they come to us, so that's great.
Yeah, it's
Thank you,
been
Jenny.
excellent to have families involved and really all bring their opinions and thoughts and ideas. People are very creative.
Great work, Jenny.
Thank you so much.
So I'm just gonna ask one question, and I think it's of you guys.
Oh, okay.
So this is year 2, right? It's 3 years.
Yes.
And so I guess are we, as administration, I'm assuming we're already beginning to take a look at what are we gonna do, if and when these grant funds aren't available to be able to continue providing this?
Yeah, and I
If we believe that it's helping kids?
There's value, and I think Jenny referenced it, certainly Jenny, you can extend on this a bit, but just the leadership capacity is it's a significant component of the grant. So the hope would be that with that investment in year 1, year 2, and year 3, that you've built a sustainable model that can continue once the grant funding is gone. So actually, the folks who approved the grant were mindful enough in creating this grant opportunity to say, we're not gonna just give you the money for 3 years and then go back to doing what you were doing before.
Right.
So we're actually creating an expectation that you build that internal capacity so you can continue once the funds are no longer available. And I don't know, Jenny, if you'd add anything
Yeah, I
additional to that, but.
agree. Yes, professional development has been the biggest focus. So certainly making sure that continues to be a large focus in our budgets is important and is already a focus in mind regardless of the grant. There's just, you don't always know what you don't know. And we have new special ed teachers each year. And so having that capacity to dig more beyond just maybe what's provided generally for all of us has been really empowering. And then the coaching as well. So biggest wish is that all of my wonderful people stay with us, don't have any retirements, and we all keep chipping away at supporting our fabulous students each year.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Item 11, technology services Chromebook purchase.
Yeah, Brian's gonna share a little information about our Chromebooks.
Yeah, good evening. I'm here once again in front of you explaining the purchase ex post facto of equipment. Right, and it's happened very rarely, now it's 2 times in a row. We are experiencing extreme volatility and disruption in the technology field in terms of our normal ways of procuring equipment. Normally we buy 500 Chromebooks every year. And we go through the RFP process and we get the best pricing and then we present that to you as a board. Usually that purchase is very high and then it gets approved. We didn't even get to the RFP stage of this purchase. We were contacted by vendors as part of a preliminary search for the RFP. And all of the vendors told us that across the board there would be price increases August 1st, ranging from 10 to 20%. And that was on top of an already known price increase from the year prior of 41%. So we were going into the RFP process knowing we were gonna have to make some hard decisions about what we could buy. And then they said, if you don't buy equipment before August 1st, it's going up another 10 to 20%. We felt that was the responsible decision was to purchase the equipment up to the authority, not required with board approval of $150,000. So we got 258 Chromebooks at the higher price, but not the highest price. That saved the district roughly $30,000. We feel we can make it this year based on the equipment that we have, that students will be fine. The purchase just allows us to have extra capacity to replace ailing, damaged equipment and kind of keep the program going. And I did kind of show you the price increases as they kind of hit us from last year up to this year. And I can certainly answer any questions you might have.
What about next year? Because you said this will just get us through the year.
That's a great question. And no one knows. Yeah, if we
Well, it's
have,
gonna increase, it's not gonna go down.
I can't say.
I'm
No one knows.
thinking of giving the superintendent the ability, because you only got 258 computers, you usually buy 500, to give the superintendent the authority to make a larger increase if so needed. I don't know if you want that authority or not.
I'm fine with that. We'd have to change board policy if we're gonna do that, but that's something that if the board wants to do, we can most definitely.
I would hope that we're not in this reactionary purchasing
Right.
mode forever. I hope that the market does stabilize at some point, at some higher price level. I don't think you're wrong, Gene, says the prices aren't gonna drop dramatically. But I hope that there isn't just this continual increase. I think there's gotta be an end to that. No one knows for sure. The good news is we've done such a good job over the last few years that the current fleet of Chromebooks, out of the 7,000 Chromebooks, we are mostly on the latest iteration, 4th generation Chromebooks, which have a good life expectancy.
That's great.
So we can run those Chromebooks for a while. The problem for us is that when warranty runs out after 5 years that we typically purchase, then we'd have to take on more of the repairs ourselves, and we're not currently set up to do that. So there's many ways that we would address that, looking at what, comes at us next year. This year, we will be fine with a lower amount of Chromebooks, and we can make it for 1 year.
And I do just want to note for the public that the purchase of 258 laptop models is at a total cost of $149,898. So just $12 under. But that also, the district stands to save up to $30,000 by getting that purchase in by July. So thank you for being proactive.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. All right, we have our future meeting dates and times. The next meeting will be our September 14th regular board meeting, and school will have begun. So I am looking for a motion to go into closed session under State Statute 120.13 paren 1 paren H, consideration of impartial hearing officer's findings of fact and recommendation for conditional enrollment of a high school student.
Like to make the motion?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, could you call the roll?
Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
Mr. Liebrick,
Yes.
Ms. Potter Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Mercer,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Brewer.
Yes. Motion carries.